Hi, explorers! Do you like guessing games? Do you like asking questions? Well, today we've been invited to the Science Museum of Western Virginia, where we're going to join some young explorers in looking at some mystery boxes and trying to guess what's inside using clues. Are you ready to go? Do you have your Explorer passports? If not, you can always go to centerinthesquare.org's on-demand page and download your own today. Remember, all you need to be a great explorer is the willingness to learn, and imagination, and the ability to ask questions. Ready to go, explorers?
Hi explorers, my name is Miss Danielle and I work here at the Science Museum of Western Virginia at Center in the Square. And today I have three very special friends with me as we explore some different parts of our collection. I have Miss Charlie, Miss Bella, and Miss Kaylee with me, and we are actually here underneath of the Science Museum in what we call the dungeon. And the dungeon is where we house all of our collection of animals and specimens and really cool rocks that we use when we're learning here at the museum. Explorers, today we are going to be unboxing some really cool things that we have here in our dungeon area at the Science Museum of Western Virginia. But before I had the girls get started, I wanted to share with you some information about fossils. So we know that over millions of years, fossils can be developed when living organisms pass away and then get buried under layers of dirt and mud and silt. And later on, explorers just like you and I, when we dig in that dirt and that mud, we find evidence of life that used to live here on our Earth before we were here. And so I brought a few extra fossils with me to show you. This one is a fern fossil, which would be a plant fossil. I also have a fossil of an animal organism. When these animals passed away, they were buried under the mud and silt and dirt for a really long time, and now we can see an impression of their bodies. And this is really important because it helps us learn what kind of animals may have lived here before we were here and what the Earth may have looked like before we arrived. So, our first box, ladies, I'm going to have you open. Bella, do you want to open the first box? And then I'd like you to hold it up and see if you can guess what you think it is. Okay. Go ahead. What are your guesses?
Maybe some kind of nail.
A nail, okay. What do you think about it, Charlie?
I feel like it might be like a, I don't know.
Maybe like a horn?
Like a horn or a dinosaur nail or something.
A horn or a dinosaur nail. What is telling you that that might be a horn or a dinosaur nail?
It curves up more and it seems
curves
Yeah,
up
and it has it's a little sharp right here. Yeah. And it's a little heavy.
This is actually a T-Rex tooth.
I thought that was what it was.
So, when we look at this, what kind of food do you think or do you know that a T-Rex eats?
Meat.
Meat. And what about this tooth would have given paleontologists and archaeologists and other scientists clues that the T-Rex ate meat?
Maybe because
sharp and there's more of a curve.
They're sharp at the top.
It can break apart the meat.
It could tear the meat pretty easily. The other thing to look at is at the bottom of the tooth, many teeth, including our teeth, have lots of different roots to hold them in hard. For a T-Rex, his teeth would need to come out easily if he was biting an animal and needed to get away quick, or the animal tried to get away from him, so new teeth would grow in. So his root system isn't quite as big. Now, the reason why these are important for us to learn about is because it tells us what animals would eat and about the food chain. Before we came along, we didn't get to see T-Rexes eat other animals, did we? So this gives us some clues about what the T-Rex would eat. Are you guys ready for the next box?
Yeah.
Charlie, it's your turn to unbox box number 2. Go ahead and open it up. What do you think that this is, ladies?
It kind of looks, to me, it kind of looks like a molar.
A molar? Okay.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Kaylee?
Kind of like either a kind of rock or some sort of molar.
Yeah, I was
thinking like like a tooth or something because you can see like.
Does this look similar to some of the teeth that you guys have?
Yeah.
What teeth does it look similar to? Your front teeth or your back teeth?
Back teeth.
Okay, and what do you chew with your back teeth?
Like meat, plants,
Meat, plants. Okay, so are we ready? This is actually a mastodon molar. Now, mastodons are similar to woolly mammoths. They're a little bit different, a little bit smaller, not quite as hairy. But remember when we talked about the TRex tooth, we talked about the roots of the tooth? Do we see a lot of different roots? And even one of the roots is curved so that it wouldn't fall out quite as easily. Now, our back teeth, our molars, are used for when we're chewing up like plants and different things like that. So what do you think a mastodon would eat?
Plants.
It would probably be a herbivore.
Herbivore, that's exactly right. What do we call an animal that eats meat?
Carnivore.
Carnivore, you're exactly right. And what if they eat?
Omnivore.
Omnivore, if they eat both. That's exactly right. Now, mastodons were about 4 to 6 tons in weight, and they stood almost 10 feet tall. So that would be nearly 2 of Miss Danielle, but that would only go to his shoulder blades. Now, he would also drink about 16 to 40 gallons of water every single day. So that's a really big animal, right? So what would we think about where he would live? Would he live in a desert environment?
He would live in more of a cold environment, kind of like how the woolly mammoth.
So you think he would live somewhere that was a little bit chillier? What kind of vegetation would he need in his home? Could he just have one tree? Or would he need a lot of vegetation?
He would need a lot.
A lot of vegetation. So when scientists find fossils like mastodon teeth, they know that he was an herbivore, that he ate a lot of food because they can see the rest of his skeleton too and know how big he was. And that also gives them clues about what the environment looked like. Now, they would know that there would have to be a lot of water available, so creeks and streams and lakes and rivers, but also a lot of plants, so definitely not a desert habitat.
So kind of like in the middle.
Maybe like a forest.
Maybe like a forest,
like
or
a
even like the
tropical
prairies in the Midwest would
Maybe
be a
like
good
a
area.
tropical forest, maybe a little.
I don't know tropical forest, but maybe. I don't know. I'll have to research that. Now, do you think a mastodon would be a predator or a prey?
Both, maybe.
Maybe he could be kind of.
I feel like
no, he'd be prey because he wouldn't
prey.
eat.
He would be prey because he eats plants, and the other animals, like our T-Rex friend, would be his predator, which is unfortunate. Are we ready for the next box? Go ahead and open box number 3, Kaylee, and there's enough for each of you to have one, to pull one out.
I know what it is.
You know what it is?
I do too.
What is it?
A megalodon tooth.
A megalodon tooth. Can you guys hold that up so they can see how big it is? The other explorers can see how big it is compared to your hand. Hold your hand up beside it. Now, megalodons were ancient sharks. Now let's be paleontologists for a second. What would you know about a megalodon if you only found his teeth?
He's a carnivore.
Carnivore, okay.
Yeah.
He would be very, very, very big because
Very big.
Yeah,
the
the
teeth are even very big.
Yeah.
Megalodons were about 50 feet long. And what they could do, one of the things that scientists discovered as they were exploring these fossils is that megalodon's mouth, their jaw was so big that 2 adults could stand side by side and get chomped by a megalodon. Now, we know that they were meat eaters because what shape are their teeth?
They're like
sharp
they're
at the
like
top,
rounded
kinda
into
like
a
a triangle.
point.
They're rounded kind of to a point to do a really good job of tearing at meat. So would they be predators or would they be prey?
Predators.
Predators for sure. Now, we find these fossils sometimes on land, but what do we know about the megalodon habitat?
They live in the water.
They live in the water, that's right. So when we find them on land, we would find them close to the coast or maybe in areas that used to be underwater and the water levels have changed. So one thing that I want to show you all, if you look at the edges of your megalodon teeth, does that one have it? If you look very closely, you can see the little serrated edges, but not all megalodon fossils have the serrated edges on the side. Serrated edges are like a knife that you use to cut meat in your kitchen. So some of them have the serrated edges and some of them don't. And what that tells us about how the Megalodon adapted was that he developed those serrated edges over time to make him a better hunter.
And tear up the meat better.
Tear up the meat better, that's right. Now, unfortunately, do we have any Megalodons left?
No.
No.
And I don't think nobody wanted to have
Nobody
Megalodon.
would want, but we do have some really large sharks like the great white. And actually what happened is that the Megalodon was so big that when smaller sharks came along, they were able to get the prey easier. And so what happened was the Megalodon couldn't hunt as much food as he needed to keep his body safe. So they died off. Yeah, sometimes in our environment what we find is that different species adapt and come in and take over a habitat. And that's just part of how our world has changed. But learning about what was there first and then seeing what we have now helps us see how it's changed and why it might have changed.
How many years ago did they live?
That's actually a really, really good question. He would have lived between 5 and 24 million years ago. So he was prehistoric. Wow. And the other animals in the ocean would have been a lot larger as well. We've seen a lot of animals in our ocean adapt over time to get smaller.
Wasn't the great white shark a lot bigger?
The great white shark was smaller than the Megalodon.
And I had a question, is the giant squid is longer than the Megalodon, or is the Megalodon longer than the giant squid?
I do not know the answer to that. I need to research about the giant squid, don't I?
I would think the Megalodon would be a tiny bit larger, or maybe the same.
We'll have to look at that.
Because the giant squid is...
Now, one of the things that we find is that the larger the animal, the more what he's going to need to fuel his body.
More energy.
More food he's going to need to fuel his body, and the bigger habitat he's going to need. So when other smaller animals came in, it was easier for them to take the food source and the habitat. They didn't need quite as much as the big animals did. And that's a really big job to eat that much food every single day. Are we ready for the last box? All right, Miss Bella, are you ready to open the last box?
Yeah.
Now these fossils are from Virginia. These are fossils that are native to our area. They come from an animal that is native to our area.
Is it like a sea animal or a land animal?
Ooh, that's a very good question. So the habitat that these animals live in is a marine habitat. What does marine habitat mean?
Ocean, water.
And these animals, we actually find a lot of their fossils here in Virginia because they come into the Chesapeake Bay
I might know what this
to
is.
migrate.
Is this a cookie cutter shark?
No, it's not, but that's a really good guess. Anybody else have a guess? They do. They migrate to the Chesapeake Bay.
I have one of these, but I can't remember the name of it. It's so hard.
You think turtle? What makes you think turtle? What about that makes you think turtle?
It doesn't seem very sharp.
Okay, so what would they eat? You think it's a plant? You think it's an herbivore? Okay, Kaylee, do you have any guesses?
I'm kind of also guessing turtle because it kind of looks like...
The beak of a turtle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because turtles eat seagrass, so they would have to have something.
Something to be able to cut the grass. It does have some ridges.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
I was thinking,
go ahead.
I was thinking cookie cutter shark because it could have flattened out more
Over time. Now that's a good point. Sometimes fossils can change a little bit over time as the rock gets weathered and eroded away. And we know from the rock cycle that as water and tides and stuff like that flow over our rock and our land, it can wear some of it away. But that is not what happened here. Are you guys ready?
Because I think
Is it some
cookie cutter
sort of
sharks
clam or something?
because cookie cutter sharks are still alive.
They are.
Yeah,
But these animals are still alive too. These are not prehistoric fossils.
Yeah.
These are fossils from an animal that still exists today. These belong to a Cownose Ray, like a stingray. And the way that they eat, you guys had some really good guesses about them being plant eaters, but actually they are bottom feeders, and they have their 2 jaws, and they will suck up clams and crabs, and they use their 2 jaws. See how my knuckles kind of touch each other? And their teeth would do something similar, and once they get the food into their mouth, they would grind it up. So those ridges are how they would grind up their food. Now, if they're eating clams and crabs, what will they need to
They're gonna have to break through the shell.
the shell? So they have to have really strong jaws that can break through the shells. Now, these are actually found in the Chesapeake Bay, and the Cownose Ray actually migrates to the Chesapeake Bay every year.
I saw right here is that has a sharp part right here.
It does have a little bit of a sharp, so that's part of the weathering of the fossil. Remember we talked about sometimes they get buried underneath the dirt. Well, fossils are all buried underneath the dirt and silt.
You can see like the dirt inside of it.
Now, one really cool thing is all rays have teeth that are similar in shape, but a small distinction that scientists can make is that sometimes these teeth are angled a little bit differently. So we know this is a cownose ray because its teeth are straight up and down, the ridges. Now on some other rays, their teeth might be angled to one side or the other.
Yeah, these are sideways kind of.
Those are still a little bit more straight up and down. Some of the other ones will be angled almost like this, to the side. And that's how we can tell the difference.
Welcome back, explorers! Did you have fun figuring out what was in each of the mystery boxes? You did a great job using your explorer tools today. Remember, all you need to be a good explorer is the willingness to learn and imagination and the ability to ask questions. I'll see you next time, explorers!
Thank you.